This is my final critique, and I will be talking about some of the pieces that I have created over the past semester. This is my first art class, and I have to say that I was a little intimidated before going into this class, knowing that I had no art experience. So this is definitely an eye-opening experience for me. The first piece was from our first assignment where we had to create a sculpture from nature. I think when Sol LeWitt said, "An artist cannot imagine his art and cannot perceive it until it is complete," relates to me a lot. I never know what I'm going to do when I start my pieces, and I tend to only figure it out when I feel like the piece is complete, which is what exactly happened in this first piece. At first, I had no idea what I was going to do. I ended up gathering a bunch of rocks from my yard and just playing with them and moving them around near different shrubs until I had a feeling of what I wanted to do. I ended up looking at the different textures and colors, and I thought that the rocks added a neat element because the colors were so contrasting with the greenery. I poured water all over the rocks so it brought out their natural colors, and I love the way it clashed against the green leaves and the shrubs. I also played a lot with the height in this piece. I ended up moving the rocks around until it looked like a staircase. And from the angle, it's hard to tell, so I had added the leaves from a pepper tree so the elevation would become clear to the viewer. I learned that the picture itself was just as important as the piece. I took many different pictures from different angles, and one small move of the camera could make a big difference in the picture. My next piece was the sculpture that we had to destroy. I've been wanting to work with clay, and it was definitely not as easy as I thought. I learned that when I come up with my idea, I tend to rush into it without thinking, which is why I had to make this piece twice. I originally had sculpted a vase by taking 2 red cups and molding the clay around them. Then Professor Locke had mentioned that the widest part of the vase was in the middle, and there would be no way to get the cups out once it had dried. So after spending the hour in class working on that, I had to scrap that attempt. I ended up using another longer cup, and it worked out great. I really wanted my piece to dry so it would break when we destroyed them, and that was successful. The piece pretty much disintegrated into powder besides some large pieces that flew everywhere. I was happy to know that it was completely dry and that it worked out. Making something with flowers was the first thing that popped into my head when we got this assignment. I think it's kind of ironic in some ways to make something so delicate as a flower out of clay and let it become this hard material. But once the piece was destroyed, it also brought back the idea of the flower being a delicate thing by the way it shattered into so many pieces. This piece was the one I struggled with the most. Sabina and I collaborated on this piece, and after a lot of going back and forth, we decided to make a tree. I think that aspect of nature was a common theme seen through most of my work, and I think it's something I just enjoy trying to create. But for this piece, my inspiration came from when we watched the guy making the inflatable sculptures on YouTube. He was able to capture so much movement in his sculpture by using the vents in the streets, and I really wanted to make something that would naturally move in nature, and so we decided on a tree. We were both really surprised on how much time it took to make all branches. We wanted to make quite a few of them so it would actually look like a tree, and then we cut out little leaves and painted them green to enhance the look. The trouble we had was the trunk of the tree inflated, as you can see, but the branches did not. It was a little disappointing since we were anticipating the whole thing inflating, but I think I learned a lot from this. It had me wondering, what could I have done differently to have this sculpture perfectly inflated? Maybe not leave the top open to vent, or maybe just sealing up the ends of the branches. For my next piece, I collaborated with Juliet. We decided to make an eye out of plaster, staring at the video of the eyes. I enjoyed this project a lot. I thought it was really neat working with the casting material. I also enjoyed making the videos, so it was fun for me to record the video of our eyes and loop them together. And for this project, I learned that less can be more. I think that it may have been better for us to use only one eye, and I think that Juliet and I thought that 2 colors would make it more interesting, and also because the contrast between the colors of her blue eyes and my brown eyes. But I guess it ended up just being too much. For this project, I needed to make a dinner place setting for one. This was definitely one of the most memorable projects because of the public safety incident. Just like my first piece, I really wanted to work with different textures and colors. I think those are definitely 2 things that I like to emphasize. I took all types of flowers and leaves and bark and tried to kind of group them into different types of shapes and textures together while using things like contrasting colors. I also found the twig that was spliced down the middle, which was used as a chopstick. I really wanted to make it look more like food than leaves, which is why I attempted to cook the leaves so they would have a different texture. Although some of them did cook a little, others with the more waxy material just stayed the same. But overall, I really enjoyed making this piece, and also made for a good story, knowing that public safety destroyed my piece before I was completely finished with it. Overall, I'm not sure if my art necessarily improved, but I definitely believe that my view on artwork has evolved. Being that this was my first art class, I thought of sculpture more as something you created with clay or more moldable materials, especially since I had just gotten back from my Jan term class looking at art in Italy and France. I thought we were going to be making more classical or traditional sculptures out of traditional materials. However, in this class we got the chance to work with all types of materials that I didn't think you could use to create a sculpture, and it really opened me up to a new point of view regarding art, and I really enjoyed this experience.